Okay. Now, we'll try it again. If you can hear me, raise your hand. Much better response. Thank you. Would you please stand? We're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance by two people that did the polar plunge for Special Olympics. I'm amazed that you all are willing to do it, but thank you. Captain Josh Gasper and Captain Brad Lynn. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, the chaplain, you're hiding behind the okay. And I'm sorry, I don't have your name. Pastor what? Pastor Johnson, thank you first for being a chaplain and second for being here today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Let's pray. Lord, we say thank you for this day. We thank you, God, for the gathering of your people. As we come here to this commission, God, we're reminded and we are saddened by the events that have taken place. Lord, the perpetrators who have done such an evil act. Our hearts and our prayers go out to the families that are affected by this tragedy. Sister Lopez, who lost her life, to her children. Lord, we pray for them. It was children that were injured for no reason. And Master, it was even children who perpetrated this act. But God, we know that you know what is best. And God, I pray that we will continue to celebrate the achievements of our wonderful athletic teams, that this does not somehow thwart what we do in the future, that we have to continue to strive on despite things that we cannot control. Now, God, I ask that you would bless this commission, that you give them wisdom to make wise decisions. Then, God, I ask that you would bless each and every officer that gets up in the morning and in the afternoon, put on their uniform, realizing that they're going out to a dangerous world. But God, they still make the decision to go, and I thank you for that. Thank you for their families who wait patiently, supporting these men and women who's doing such an awesome job. Lord, I thank you for our chief. Thank you for our mayor. I ask that you would continue to bless them. Thank you for all of the Board of Commissioners. Then, God, I thank you for everyone who's here on today. Lord, that you would allow us to do what you have called us to do, is to be decent and honest and fair one with the other. We thank you, God. We pray for this meeting to be a total success. It is in the precious name of Jesus Christ we pray. And God's people said,
Amen. Thank you for that message. We needed that today, especially. Okay, guest presentation from the Lockton Companies. Is there anyone from our place that's helping them? You're on your own?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Katie Dumit. I'm the
Would you
supervisor.
speak into the microphone, please?
He's coming.
Oh, I didn't hear what you
sorry.
said.
Sorry. I'm Katie Dumit, and I'm the supervisor of benefits. And we have Matt Tritz from Lockton to come and do the presentation this morning on the 24-25 renewal for our health insurance. I also have Major Haley here, and we'll be around if you have any questions afterwards.
Thank you.
Good morning. Katie, thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Matt Tritz, Senior Vice President with Lockton Companies, proud community partner here in Kansas City. And just today, I'm here to go through really short about 9 slides, right, to talk about your medical insurance mostly and your dental and vision program. There's the agenda. The majority of this, we're going to talk about the medical renewal. And we'll give you a little background too, short background, don't worry, just kind of where we've been and what historical increases have looked like and what is leading up to this renewal recommendation. So right out of the gate, here is just a snapshot of what the initial medical renewal looks like with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas City. Just left to right, you can see current premium total $35.6 million. The initial renewal and really what we ended up with as far as a renewal premium was 12.9% this year. We'll get into the detail on what's driving that increase in just a second. In collaboration with Katie and her team and the insurance committee, we've settled on a number that'll land us at 10.8 for a gross premium increase, and we'll show you how we get there. As I mentioned, here's a little background. So a lot of numbers on this page. I will just guide your attention to the really small highlighted numbers. This is a loss ratio report just to show basically enrollment on the program, what the claims have been, medical claims, pharmacy claims, and then you compare that to the premium that's being contributed or paid to Blue Cross and Blue Shield. The top number where it says 104%, that's the current year. So this is, your renewal is May 1. So May 1 through December, that is running at 104% loss ratio. Desired loss ratio on a fully insured program, 85 to 90, right? So we're running well over what Blue Cross Blue Shield deems as acceptable loss ratio.
So you're saying that's good?
No, that's bad.
I think a lot of people don't understand what loss ratio is.
Sure, no problem. So loss ratio is really simple. If you pay $1 in premium and you pay $1.04 in claims, you got 104%, right? So Blue Cross pays all the claims. The risk is transferred to them. The Board of Police Commissioners in this program pays a set premium every month. So so we just measure what the claims are against the premium.
They're losing money.
They are. So, I mean, to your comment, one might say you're buying this very efficiently. But what happens when they're losing money is they ask for higher increases.
I understand.
So you could see in comparison in the bottom at this, for the full plan year last year, it ran at 108%. So we've had a multi-year kind of trend of running over 100% loss ratio, which leads to challenging discussions, right? As I mentioned, our job is to support the department and the insurance committee in deciding how can we maintain a valuable benefit and affordable price for our police officers. We break this down just a little bit more to give a little more context about what makes up that loss ratio. And we're doing this by types of employees. So you have active employees, you have pre-65 retirees, and you have post-65 retirees. So if you just go across and look at the loss ratio, there's your total of 104 that we just looked at on the previous page. The active is running at 90, and then 207 and 145, respectively for post and pre and post 65 retirees. One other bit of information, and I'll tell you why we present this to you. What we do here is to show you a per employee per month claim cost in the enrollment option. So right now we have 3 enrollment options, or 3 plans, I guess, that folks can enroll in. Your HMO plan, your PPO plan, and the EPO plan. By a long shot, the HMO plan is incurring the highest claims. And there's some stats up there that reflect that. This has been the trend for many, many years in that particular program. And we've taken some steps, the committee's taken some steps over the last couple of years to try and, while maintaining a really nice and rich benefit program, valuable plan, migrating away and offering, better options for folks, and it's really worked. And we'll show you, a couple of years ago, you probably had 80% enrollment in that HMO, and today it's only 35. So last year at this meeting, we agreed to freeze that HMO plan. We didn't let anybody else enroll in it, and that's been successful, right? We have a lot of folks that moved over to that EPO plan. So just wanted to give you some more context as to what's driving cost here. This slide, we show this also a little history, right? 1-year snapshots are tough to look at. So this one gives a historical perspective, kind of where we've been, and given the big increase this year, over the last few years, it's really been pretty good. We've been able to manage this increase to under 5%. I'll walk through this with you. Net BOPC premium, right? So this is the premium that the board is paying after payroll deductions. So we share in the cost. Way back in 2021, the total there was $27.5 million. And then we put some lines on here, right? We've trying to manage this to under 5% per year. So the pink bar, if we go to 21, 22 at 28 million, that's about a 5% from the previous year. So if we had just been rolling at 5% for all these years, we'd be up to 33.4 million, and we're not there. And due to the work that the committee has put in, we're still far shy of that. We're expected to be 28.7 million for this year. The blue bar on the far right, 24-25, equals 28.7 million. So over that period of time, 5 years, we're kind of managing this to like a 4.6% trend on total dollars. So while this year is hard, we're going to end up at a 9.8. The work that we've done for the last few years is helping this a little bit. I'll pause here for a second. There's a lot of information on this page. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to take them.
Can I ask a kind of a general question as to numbers? As I understand it, our number of employees at the department has declined from, let's say, that first year metric. However, we are seeing at least trends that would suggest cost increases, but we're addressing them with some interventions on our part. Can you explain that? I mean, my real fear or question gets to, assuming we were in a world that was fully staffed, right, in future negotiations, what type of cost exposures might we be looking at, which I imagine is an equation type thing you could provide?
Yeah, so what is healthcare trend looking like in the future, right? And how do we budget for growth, so to say? So, yes, I would agree. Right now, in our community and across the country, healthcare trends are easily 4 to 5 points on just the health side, let alone prescription drug side, higher than they've been kind of through the period that I've got illustrated on this chart. Reasons for that, right? Healthcare providers have high labor costs just like everybody else, right? Talent acquisition, cost of labor is going up. We have wonderful, technology and medical providers, right? And the cost of these services is expensive. So just on the health side, the trend is 9, 10%. The drug side is 13, 14%. And that is quite a bit higher than it has been here. So the committee we've been working with is well aware of that, right? And in the process of a longer range plan to do the best we can to continue to provide valuable benefits at a reasonable cost. Some of the things we've done here will continue on, right? So the committee has come to the belief that incremental changes, right, over time, a little bit of the time, is probably the way to go to help manage this versus doing nothing. As you can see, the cost of doing nothing here, if we had done nothing the last few years, would be really high. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a snapshot of actually the payroll deduction. So it's got full premiums and payroll deductions. So the pink 23, 24, that's the current rates. So that's the current premiums, PPO, HMO, EPO plans, and it shows the enrollment. Blue would be the renewal as of May 1, 2024. There's the new premiums and the new payroll deductions. And then far out to the right, we went ahead and just showed you on a monthly basis what that impact is, for active employees. Your pre-65 and post-65 retirees pick up the whole cost, so this is just for active employees. And you can see there's the 10.8 number that was on slide 1 down on the bottom in the blue bars, 10.8%. The net BOPC increase would be 9.8, so we're under 10% increase for the board. Here's the renewal recommendation, official recommendation from the Insurance Committee. The Insurance Committee is appointed by the Chief of Police, so I'll run through these for you. On our PPO plan, we've got a minor adjustment to the out-of-pocket maximum. And really, we did that just so it would match the EPO plan. The deductible and coinsurance and co-pays will now apply to the out-of-pocket maximum. The HMO, there's a few more changes. Office visit co-pays and specialty co-pays, increasing to $35 and $70. An increase on hospital services, so that in-day, per-day co-pay, and then the maximum. Small increase, and then the out-of-pocket maximum going to $3,000 and $6,000. The Insurance Committee is also recommending that this would be the last year for the HMO plan. If you're on it this year, this would be the last year. 5/1/25, it won't be offered as an option. So those that are in that plan will have to make a choice to the PPO plan or the EPO plan.
And can I follow up on that?
Yes.
So we froze it last year, and I
Yes.
assume that freeze stays through this year also. So no new participants going into
That's correct.
HMO.
Yeah.
And then do we have a communication plan to those that are in it that will be needing to select either the EPO or the PPO?
Yeah.
About particularly coverage and the selection of care providers.
We do. Katie and her team are leading that along with ours. There'll be several in-person meetings, right, at the locations for those folks. And they do have options to call if they have questions. And there's written communication, open enrollment guides. So they've got a multitude of opportunities, right? And we'll be reaching out to them to make sure they understand. They've got a whole year to prepare. You're welcome. And some pharmacy copay solutions. As we mentioned, the trend on pharmacy is high. This program here really is targeted at specialty drugs, which are the high-cost drugs and brand-name drugs, and oftentimes the manufacturers of these drugs offer copay cards. These programs here really, there's no member impact. Blue Cross will administer this behind the scenes. This will support reducing premium, mitigation. Blue Cross gave us a $400,000 premium decrement to install this program, and we recommended it, and the Insurance Committee recommended it as well.
I've got a question about the statements you made when you were making your recommendation that for members turning 65, they not be required to mandatorily do the Medicare Advantage plans. This is on page 18 of the report. You note that while there are potential cost advantages, they still believe that moving that in that direction would require further discussion on plan design. Can you expand on what the issue?
Yeah, sure. So you have probably a working copy that the committee was looking at there. I don't have a slide like that for everybody else to look at.
No, I'm not suggesting you do.
That's okay. Really, I guess what this centers around is what's the right thing to do for these post-65 retirees on the plan, right? And we're of the belief that there's a high percentage of them that maybe just don't understand how much money they could save if they were to explore a Medicare Advantage program versus paying the full premium on this program. We've had several conversations about that with the committee. It was just decided for right now, it requires more discussion, more consideration. But what they did agree to do was use some resources from our company to help educate some retirees, post-65 retirees, because it could be significant financial impact to the good for the retiree if they understood what was available to them.
How would it impact the cost to the department if?
Positive. What you do is you remove the risk, from the plan, because you get in, insurance is risk, right? So taking personal out of it, insurance is risk. So when you are, if you look back at the loss ratio, just to give you a little data for those post-65s, it's running 145% loss. If you remove those claims and those premiums, this is a net positive for the plan.
So why, I guess I'm still then struggling, why wouldn't we want to do that, and why wouldn't we push in that direction?
Yeah, I think the committee was on board with educating. Similar to the question before, is we want to make sure that everybody understands, right? And this is a big decision for retirees. Obviously, healthcare is important, and they need some more resources to understand that. And the committee just didn't feel like they were equipped at this point in time to do that and just to make a mandate. So we're going to continue to work on this as a committee, and we are going to offer education sessions for these post-65 retirees during this year.
I don't think David was suggesting a mandate. I think he was suggesting encouraging.
No, I'm
You're suggesting a mandate?
Right.
Oh, never mind.
Why not, if we're going to save money and it's going to be beneficial for the retirees, why not push ahead with it? I don't see the downside.
Is there a retiree on the committee?
We did, Major Heinen with Fiscal Division. I'm on the Healthcare Committee and been very involved in all these conversations. We did have retirees post-65, pre-65 come in and have conversations with us. We want to make sure that we are managing the impact to our employees. And so the post-65s, if we across the board say everybody now has to sign up for a Medicare Advantage plan, some of those members that have been post-65, maybe they're 75 years old and have not signed up yet, they take a significant penalty in doing that. And it is not, they're not probably in a financial situation where they can take that penalty. And so we don't want to do that. It'd be detrimental to what their pension is coming in at now. And so we don't want to do that to them. That's a big leading cause in why we're going to do the communication thing. We're going to educate them. And then in the future, look forward to once you hit 65, you then have to go to a Medicare Advantage plan, but grandfathering the individuals that did not do that so we don't hit them with that massive penalty.
Thank you. That's helpful. Okay, David.
Okay. Any other questions before? That is the recommendation for the medical and prescription drug plan for this year. I appreciate the question. There's no recommendation around the Medicare for this year. So.
Well, and then I do have a question because I thought this would come up. One of the things in the material we received talks about obesity and anti-obesity medications. And a number of our employees have asked for that to be covered, and it's my understanding that right now it's not covered, and going forward it's not going to be covered. Is that right?
Yeah, your plan would cover lots of new drugs, right, that are available. Your plan would cover medications that are for diagnosed type 2 diabetics, right, that are
Yes,
eligible for that.
it covers that already, yes.
It covers that. It does not cover for weight loss only. So if you
Yes.
don't have a diabetic diagnosis, you're correct. It would not be covered.
Okay, so I guess I don't understand why. If obesity is a problem that
Feel free.
aggravates other health conditions, and we have a medication that could keep you from being obese, why wouldn't we cover it?
So right now, we've had these discussions on the healthcare committee. The insurance company, it has to be like an FDA-approved drug for them to cover it. And there are very minimal ones that are currently in that situation as far as a weight loss drug, and they are very expensive. And so we're looking at potential costs of increase of up to $14,000 a month.
It says 14,000 a year.
Or, sorry,
on this.
1.5 million a year. That would hit our overall premium for other companies that have implemented this. And so when Lockton did the market evaluation on that. And so with our premium increase already this year at that 9.8, they hit us with 12.5 initially to begin with. We didn't figure that was something that the budget could sustain this year, and then we would continue looking at in future years as those as the prescription drugs, potentially more of them get approved, and then that competition drives the price down overall on those drugs. It's something to look at going forward. But this year, with our current budget status and with us wanting to do a lot with our budget this year as far as personnel incentives, it wasn't really feasible.
I want you to continue to look at that, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the question. It's a big topic right now. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you for your presentation.
So just one final, we do want to bring, this is much shorter, one slide, dental and vision. This one's a little more straightforward. The committee is recommending to renew the dental program of Blue Cross and Blue Shield and the vision program with VSP as presented. The vision program as a slight enhancement to the benefit, increasing frame and lens allowances, but as presented, this is the recommendation of the committee.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Colonel McCollum, you're going to,
We need a motion to approve.
well, I was just going to say, I think that's in Colonel McCollum's.
So this is the second year renewal for the period of May 1st, 2024 through April 30th, 2025. The total overall premium increase, as talked about, is 9.8% over the previous period. The total projected cost is $28,694,386. I recommend approval.
Is there a motion for approval?
Move to approve the recommendation.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, Chief.
Councilman, I believe.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Councilman Ray. Please come and present, and thank you for being here.
Good morning. Sorry, Chief. I think I want to start off by acknowledging that condolences and a few thank yous are in order after the events of last Wednesday's parade. Condolences certainly for the Lopez Galvin families. You've all seen on the news and in social media, and the fact that we're not separated by varied degrees of separation in this town. Losing Lisa is a big blow to a very tight-knit community, and a lot of folks are feeling that right now. I think the outpouring of support has been encouraging and is a good representation of who we are as a city. The thank yous in order certainly go to the men and women of the Kansas City Police Department, both in their efforts to make this a safe event leading up to the violence, but then also in how they responded to the violence after it occurred. There were a number of us inside of Union Station number of council members, players, staff that had been corralled into the building moments after the shooting had occurred. And there was also a moment inside of Union Station where chaos ensued, and many believed that whatever violence had occurred outside had spilled over into the inside of Union Station. And I won't go into too much detail, but there was certainly a point at which my wife and I were convinced there was, some kind of mass shooter in the building armed with high-powered weapons and in a Kevlar vest ready to wreak havoc. And in those moments, as we followed the crowd out, I saw multiple officers going towards where the danger was perceived to be coming from. Their weapons were drawn. They were ready to make sure that whatever was on the other side of Union Station was neutralized. And so I thank those folks who were willing to put themselves in danger and secure the situation, and for handling the situation after the fact. I think everyone had a bit of a different experience. My wife and I ended up sheltering in place on the 4th floor of Union Station for about 45 minutes with some coaches and other folks with the chiefs and Union Station staff. And when we were finally able to exit, we were greeted by multiple law enforcement officers, some of the folks in this room right now, that had secured the situation. Thank you also to Union Station staff who, as we made it to the 4th floor, put as many doors and walls between us and whatever danger was perceived to be out there. It was clear that their training for such a situation kicked in, and those folks did an amazing job in a very scary situation. All of what happened inside of Union Station was based on a perception. I think in talking to my colleagues, some of them were hiding on toilet stools in the bathroom stalls, some were hiding in the freezers at Pierpont's and closets. It's clear that in that situation, without knowing what had actually occurred outside, everyone's mind went to the boogeyman we associate with these types of mass shootings. And what we have since learned is that rather than being that boogeyman, it's a type of violence that we are actually very familiar with in Kansas City. And I think what we publicly know about this situation is that there were young men who were armed with very dangerous weapons, and it was an argument that escalated to gun violence within a very short period of time. That's the exact situation that caused us to break the homicide record last year. Arguments, escalation, firearms, bloodshed. And although the response of the heroes on that day and how we've responded as a community has been encouraging, we have to come to grips with the fact that what occurred at Union Station was actually something that we're very familiar with, and that has plagued our city for several years now. And so I want to issue those, thank yous and condolences. We like to share with folks when grief or tragedy hits that, we'll keep you in thoughts and prayers. And while I think that's fine, we also need to keep folks in our actions as we move forward. As you can imagine, for myself and the others who, experienced the chaos in Union Station, we spent a lot of time the last couple days talking about what we could do, what we can change, how we can move forward as a city, what we can do in our policies and our politics, legally, with program solutions. And I believe you'll hear the mayor discuss some of that this morning. But there will also be opportunities to engage in these conversations through the City Council's Public Safety, Finance, and Governance Committee. We are eager to have these conversations, and there's a long list of things that we're looking at that I think we'll continue to talk about in the coming days, and certainly welcome you all being a partner in that. Many of us are kind of on fact-finding missions as well, trying to understand what has happened. I've sent the chief a couple emails and trying to obtain some additional information. And so I would invite you all to be a part of that conversation as we move forward as a committee. Just so you know, the mayor and I are both on that committee and are eager to have these conversations as we need to. I think the good news is, or the relieving news is that some of the recommendations that I would make that I believe directly address this specific kind of violence are things that we already have the wheels in motion on. One of those being the focused deterrence strategy that you've heard a lot about. And so now is not the time to abandon the things that we are ready to launch, but to double down and see how we surround those things with even more power. The focused deterrent strategy is aimed at reducing gun violence in young folks, and I think we could tailor this in a way that it addresses the lack of emotional regulation, anger management, and all that happens in the moment when someone pulls out a gun and decides to use it. We had our first governance meeting about 3 weeks ago. The mayor's on the governance committee, the chief is on the governance committee, I am, as well as some of our other law enforcement and community partners. And I just want to reiterate that, this is a strategy that I think can be very impactful in this very specific kind of violence that we're experiencing. And so I share that so that folks know we are working and we have strategies that we think can be successful. It's just our timing's off a little bit, unfortunately. On the council side, appreciate the mayor introducing a budget that includes the funding of the police department's request for salary increases and additional officers. And while I will enthusiastically support that, we have to understand that the actions we might want to take moving forward can not only be law enforcement based, and we've got to put everything on the table at this point, because the worst case scenario that I think we've all envisioned happened on Wednesday, and we have to confront that. So those are my comments for today. We are continuing to work on the Rehabilitation Detention Center Committee, still on target and on course, consistent with what I've shared with you all before. And I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
I would just like to say thank you. I appreciate it. I know you've been working hard on the jail, and I think now we can all see why we really do need more jail systems here and holding people accountable. And I appreciate you guys really working hard and moving forward on that for us. So just wanted to thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for recognizing that there are many different ways to try and deal with this issue. And I think, as you said, the chief's on the committee, and the crime plan that she's drafted talks about focused deterrence and all those other things. And I think we can get this turned around. But like you said, if you lose a life, it's a loss. And we don't ever want that to happen again to anyone. So thank you for your efforts. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I just very briefly want to note and commend the councilman, first for sharing the words today, thinking about you and your wife too, who were part of a very serious incident with many others. Everyone was touched in different ways, but we recognize everyone who was. Another thing that I think the councilman has already done in the days since the tragedy on Wednesday, and I commend him for this, is talking to this department about how we plan for future events. It is easy to start with a look back and a focus on a number of the things that occurred, as we must do, but we also recognize, particularly in the council district in which he resides, the 4th, we will have a St. Patrick's Day parade, we will have runs, we will have almost any event that happens in downtown Kansas City, the southern Northland, and the Westport area. That would be something that needs a very strong security collaboration with this police department, aggressive planning both with the event planners, PD, and others. And I thank the councilman for that work and for, I think, having a next step as to how we can share our safety plan for our community. I know those conversations are ongoing, but we look forward to learning more from that as you do that work. And I thank you for noticing that almost from Wednesday on.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I'll
Thank-
just add my thank you for that personal reflection that you and your wife experienced. That is impactful, and that informs us, and completely agree with you that there is no one answer to this, and that our strategies are out in front of us, and we cannot relax upon those strategies. We need to go forward with them. Thank you very much, Councilman.
Absolutely agree. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your time. Now, Chief.
Morning. Collectively, the members of the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department mourn the loss of Elizabeth Lisa Lopez Galvin, a wonderful person who served her community with love, just as Councilman Rhea discussed. Our hearts go out to all those injured in the shooting at the conclusion of the celebration rally, to include those impacted who do not have physical wounds. I'm thankful for the quick actions of our officers, our partner agencies, and all of Kansas City's first responders, and for all who choose to serve each day. Our department has received an outpouring of support and assistance, to include federal resources to assist in this investigation from all across the country, of which we are very appreciative. Our investigation of this incident has been an all-hands-on-deck approach. We have been working tirelessly around the clock, and we have dedicated the personnel needed to ensure this investigation is thoroughly conducted at a rapid pace. I'm grateful for the drive and coming together from those investigating this case that I've had the honor to witness firsthand. It is still a very active investigation. We will not relent until everyone who may have played a part in these crimes is apprehended, so that they may be punished to the fullest extent of the law. We are working closely with the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office and want to ensure that we maintain the integrity of this case as we move forward. I also appreciate all the outreach in our city to provide mental health resources to those impacted by this incident. As the police chief, I want the board to know that we too are offering wellness debriefings for our officers and staff who responded to this tragedy. As we look to the future, Mayor, as you mentioned, regarding large-scale events, we will continue to ensure public safety is top of mind in the planning and organizing. And our police department loves and is committed to Kansas City, and we resolve to bring justice to all victims. Deputy Chief Niemeyer is going to provide just a pinch more information in regard to the efforts on this investigation and how we're moving forward.
Thank you. Colonel Niemeyer.
Good morning. My items can be found under tab B in your book, but we will have a PowerPoint presentation as well. First, I'd like to start off with our robbery unit. This past month, mid-December to January, we had a string of robberies that was being conducted. Dollar General stores. We had 12 robberies that were.
Are you sure your microphone's on?
Yeah, I can move it up. Is that better?
Better, thank you.
We had 12 robberies that occurred at Dollar General stores. The robbery unit identified those who were involved. They served 6 search warrants. They recovered 3 guns, and they arrested 3 juveniles. When this occurred, once those arrests occurred, it dropped our robberies by 66% the next week. So I just wanted to, we talk about violent crimes a lot. There's other crimes in our city, and I want you guys to know that the robbery unit, our robberies have really spiked at times right now, and this was a really good investigation that brought our numbers down just by taking care of one group involved in those 12 robberies in a month. So just wanted to touch on the robbery unit. Before we got started, what we normally start with is our blue sheet. 2024, we've had 16 homicides as of this morning. This compares to 20 that we had at the same time last year in 2023. In January, we had 5 homicides. I think everybody remembers the 2 weeks it was bitterly cold. That was obviously helpful. And then in February, we've had 11 homicides so far for a total of 16. Our non-fatal shootings, January 1 to February, or until today, we've had 60 victims, or let me correct that. We've had 91 victims as compared to 60 at the same time last year. Obviously, the events that occurred on Wednesday drives that number extremely high. We've also had 3 or 4 other events in the past month where we've had multiple victims at a crime scene. So that has driven our non-fatal numbers to be a 52% increase. During the month of January, we submitted a total of 315 cases. 254 cases, actually it's 255 cases to Jackson County, 38 cases to Clay County. Let me back up. Sorry, my thoughts are kind of everywhere because I'm about to talk about the parade, and it's a bit emotional for me too, knowing that's coming up and what's happened. So what's on that slide, we just updated it this morning, so the numbers will be off slightly just by a few, just because of what was done. But on cases submitted, we submitted 315 total, 254 to Jackson County, 39 to Clay County, 22 to Platte County, which is up from those, and those are the latest updated numbers that we got as of this morning. I will say, and I've talked to my staff and Sergeant King, Major Covenant, and Pam Bear, we're gonna start next month on the Friday before the board meeting. That's when I'm gonna cut the numbers and say that's the final numbers that we'll report. So we're not trying to get those up to date within 2 hours of the board meeting, because that's what happens. Our numbers are off by 1 or 2, and I don't want any confusion of what's been submitted. I also want to talk about our property crimes unit. They had some significant events happen as well, and we don't talk about property crimes a lot, but it's one of the things that affects most of our citizens when it comes to crime. Last month, on January the 15th, after a Chiefs playoff game, the Miami Dolphins equipment trailer was broken into. Several $100,000 worth of equipment was taken. Property crimes, Center, East, Metro, and South all worked together on that case, because there were people and stolen property spread out across the city. They served 11 search warrants. They made a total of 5 arrests and recovered approximately 70% of the items that were taken, and they were returned to the Dolphins football team. The second event occurred in Metro. There were 21 burglaries that occurred in the Brookside-Waldo area. Metro Property Crimes executed search warrants. They recovered items that were involved in those and eventually arrested the suspect that was involved in those burglaries. So those are sometimes crimes that are not heard. We talk about violent crime a lot, but there are a lot of folks on our department, a lot of detectives in different units doing a lot of good work. And then lastly, I will talk about what occurred last Wednesday. And then I'll take questions after that. These are my thoughts that I wrote down. So some of this will be information that's already been said by the chief and the councilman. But I will try to stay at a very high level because this is still an ongoing investigation. But this is an overview of the total day. I've spoken to Deputy Chief Mabin. He was up in the command center. We were actually on the ground on the day that happened. So I just prepared this statement, and I'll just read it. I wanted to start by saying our hearts and prayers are with all the victims from the shootings that occurred at the parade. The parade security started at 0500 hours for all of our officers, detectives, outside agencies, and federal partners. Crowds began to file in all morning. There's positive interactions happened all up and down that route. I will just say for Sergeant King and I, we had the opportunity to patrol the route from 6th Street all the way down to Union Station, back up to 6th Street. We did that 5 or 6 times before the parade ever began. I observed officers playing catch with kids, taking pictures of citizens. We were handing out Chiefs beads, and many other positive interactions. And their stories, everybody has their own personal stories from all up and down that route. I want to give the board and the citizens watching today some insight to the investigation and how it took place. When the shooting takes place, there are many photos and videos that have been circulated on social media and news outlets that show our officers immediately began to take action, along with citizens who were at the rally as well. We had several folks that were taken into custody immediately by our officers and outside agencies. I want to thank every single officer that worked that day. In a second, they went from positive interactions with our citizens to protectors of our citizens. They rendered aid to the victims. They arrested suspects. They assisted citizens to safety, as well as securing a crime scene. One of our plainclothes officers was injured that day, fairly significantly. He's going to be okay, but it's something that people don't realize had happened. Once the scene was secured, the command post bus was placed at Pershing and Kessler next to the medical tent where all the victims had been taken after the shooting. I want to thank those who worked in that medical tent. They saved lives along with other first responders. The Investigations Bureau began immediately on this investigation. All 4 homicide sergeants, Sergeant Deering, Sergeant Slater, Sergeant Toigo, Sergeant Fitzgerald, both the assault squad sergeant, Sergeant Huth, and Sergeant Cramblett, as well as all of their detectives who had already been working the parade route since 5 a.m., began to divide up the workload under the leadership of Major Kirkhoff and Major Kobanaw. To give you an idea, that's about 30, it's more than 30 detectives. A lot of people ask me, why was there so many officers right there? Well, all those detectives were in their uniform working the parade route that day and immediately came down in, and they were in their uniform, but they were from our homicide squads and our assault squads. Within hours, detectives were at the hospitals and had made contact with the victims' family, or medical staff personnel so that we could begin to identify victims of this. We also started a direct hotline within 24 hours for tips and questions regarding the event. The FBI assisted us that night by opening a portal in order for anyone to be able to upload video. I believe that as of this weekend, that was still open. We have received a tremendous amount of video from folks' cell phones. The hotline number is not open anymore, but you can get to the portal, the video portal, through the website.
Through our website, the
believe
police
so, yes,
department website.
Thank you. The detectives, they've worked since that moment. They worked through the night that night, and as has already been reported publicly, there are 2 juveniles that were taken into custody. I want to reiterate, this case is still very active and open. The department has been asked a lot of questions about this shooting and investigation, and I want to clarify, and I believe it's already been clarified, that this event was not like others that we have seen around our country. It was different. It is our intention to be able to clarify the exact events that took place last Wednesday once the investigation is complete. We continue to work closely with the juvenile court as well as the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office in order to file charges. I want to again thank every single officer, detective, outside agency, federal partner, dispatchers, medical providers, KCFD, and our citizens for their support and assistance on that day. Thank you to our crime scene unit, our crime lab, who worked tirelessly around the clock to process the evidence from the scene to help us. I apologize now because I am sure I didn't cover everyone, but thank you to anyone and everyone who has texted, called, emailed, and checked on the KCPD and provided support. To close, I again want to express our hearts and prayers go out to the victims of this tragic event. And with that, I'll take any questions.
First, thank you. And I echo your appreciation for everyone that worked on it that day and has been working on it 24 hours since that day. I understand it's an ongoing investigation and we can't discuss details, but we know how hard people have been working and we appreciate it. Any other questions?
Just one, you mentioned the hotline number was taken down. The tips number is always available, correct? So that if people do have information that hasn't come forward yet, they still have that opportunity.
Yes, sir. The TIPS hotline is always available. The immediate hotline number has been down. Something I should say, we worked with, a lot of the questions that came in is what happened to the property afterwards that was left there. And we worked with, we worked with the mayor. Michael Shaw was there. I think the Parks Department took over. And once we were finished there that day at the crime scene, they came and collected a lot of those items and then had a redistribution center there at the park across from Crown Center, if I'm not mistaken. So I appreciate them coming down there and taking care of that. So that was part of the reason. Also, there's just a lot of questions and we had that open for a couple days. I think we got most of the information that we needed in the first 48 hours.
But anyone whose property they had to abandon when they ran, there's a way for them to get that back.
They can call 311. I believe is that the same that they're doing?
That's still right.
The agreement was they can call 311 and they will put them in touch with the authorities at the city to take care of their property.
Where the property's been taken. Great, thank you.
Deputy Chief, and I second all the thoughts you've shared. I'll have more to share in our own board comments. I wanted to ask about robberies, and I found that information rather interesting. So you noted that there have been a number of robberies. We have been able to intervene in that conduct. Juveniles were our primary assailants. Can you advise us as to what occurred with those juveniles? Have there been charges filed, and what kind of status are our defendants in at this point?
I do know we made the arrest. I don't know what the status is right now. I mean, obviously, you know that they were charged as juvenile.
Understood. The department would have referred charges to some relevant authority, whether that's the juvenile officer or the Jackson County prosecutor, and they are in a point where either they've made decisions or no. Okay. All right. So thank you.
Well, and along the mayor's lines, that would be something maybe in the future we can get a little more information on, just to kind of follow how that's going and what's really happening.
Yeah,
I think that would be very informative.
you're right. The part that ties our hands behind our back is that the juvenile court is secret. We can't even go in and watch the proceedings. It's a closed proceeding, but it's to the extent you can get information, we'd appreciate it. And we understand the restrictions.
Madam Chair, if I may, and maybe it's too much like a law school exam for our attorney, but I'm going to go with it anyway. To the extent a juvenile commits some offense that's a violation of the city's code of ordinances, how do we address that? I just say I remember getting a speeding ticket at 16. I believe I was charged in municipal court for said speeding ticket. I had to pay a fine of some sort, and it was dealt with as if I was, in some ways, an adult driver. But explain to me a normal run-of-the-mill ordinance violation, or a not run-of-the-mill ordinance violation, and how that's dealt with.
And rather than giving an incorrect answer on the pop quiz, I'd rather defer to that and then come back to that in closed session, if you don't mind, Mayor. I can point to the Investigations Bureau that may be able to, or the Patrol Bureau that may be able to discuss their approach before charges are filed.
Well, but if they are, I think that's the question.
If they are.
Right, if they
Okay.
are. So how do we deal with said juvenile?
I will check into that and get back to you if that's all right.
The question, okay, I guess I understand the question. My core question being, do they get the treatment of a juvenile court officer, or do they get the treatment of 16-year-old driving Quentin Lucas, who did have to be a defendant in municipal court for the speeding offense? And so haven't worked in it in a while, and I guess I'm not a juvenile any longer to know and understand, but I think the question I might have, and I know in my conversation with Councilman Ray and others, the city council has produced in recent years and before any number of ordinance violations to help curtail criminality of folks of all ages in our city. And there is some interest in knowing the extent to which those laws are able to take some role in addressing it. But you've advised you'll have more answers for us later. Right.
To follow up, that somebody asked, those 3 juveniles are in custody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Colonel Mabin.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My information is under tab C in your books, but you can follow along on your screens. First, I'll begin with updates and notable events from the Patrol Bureau. On January 21st, the Patrol Division stations transitioned to 11-hour work schedule. Previously, officers were divided into 3 watches consisting of 10-hour shifts, where officers worked 5 days on and 3 days off for 3 weeks, and then 4 days on, 4 days off for the following 3 weeks. Now, officers are divided into 2 watches, days and nights, and work 4 days on and 4 days off. Then, once every 28 days, they will be scheduled to work an additional 6-hour workday. These 6-hour days will be utilized primarily for in-service and other training. We are also implementing a seniority-based shift bidding for the first time in recent history. It's been a monumental effort designing and implementing these changes, and we're still working through some minor issues, but things should settle down over the next few work periods. So it's been asked, why an 11-hour shift? Well, it's a hybrid of the previous 10-hour shift and a 12-hour plan. The 10-hour plan is good, but it's resource intensive because officers are spread out over 3 watches. And with low staffing numbers, it makes it difficult to provide adequate coverage and at the same time allow officers to take time off. Now, 12-hour plans grant officers more days off, but they have less coverage during shift changes and often results in officers having to work overtime at the end of the night. So the 11-hour plan utilizes 2 watches with a few overlapping shifts between days and nights. So it places more officers in the field during the busiest times of the day, and it also grants officers an additional 14 regular days off per year. And lastly, this is very important, the 11-hour schedule allows officers to attend yearly in-service training without requiring specialized units to cover their shifts, or without taking staffing levels down to bare minimums.
Has the response been positive?
It's mixed right now. We have a lot of officers who are supportive and excited for it. We have other officers who may have been on a previous PM's shift that ended up having to move to different shifts. So obviously, they were used to that, they were comfortable with that, so it's gonna be a transition period. But the same thing happened when we implemented the 10-hour plan. And we were working 8 hours, and initially some people didn't like that, and then, 10 years later, everybody loves it. So we'll continue to monitor that, but we think it's gonna be a net benefit. The Police Athletic League had an estimated 1,002 total visits during the reporting period. That's a daily average of 50 kids. And they also had 27 new enrollments. They also hosted their first annual Battle in the Northeast amateur boxing competition. Several boxing gyms were invited to participate, and over 350 people were in attendance. The event provided an opportunity for 5 of our PAL kids to compete in an amateur boxing event for the first time. Our social service specialists had a total of 93 referrals for the month. And one notable incident occurred when the fire department requested assistance at an abandoned home. 2 dogs were left inside the residence in below 0 temperatures. social service specialists, with the assistance of the Pet Resource Center, were able to get the dog safely transported to the KC Pet Project. I also want to highlight some of the work that our crime analysts do in solving crime and keeping the city safe. On January 25th, officers were dispatched to the Burlington Coat Factory on Choteau and reported on a reported armed business robbery. A suspect pointed a handgun at an employee and demanded money from the register. When the store employee opened the register drawer, the suspect grabbed an unknown amount of money and fled the store on foot. The suspect was then observed on camera getting into a vehicle and fleeing the scene. Priscilla Portugal, Shoal Creek's crime analyst, immediately began searching city cameras and observed the vehicle and noted the license plate. Through that search, as well as social media, she was able to identify the suspect. Shoal Creek officers responded to the suspect's address, where he was taken into custody after a brief foot chase. He was subsequently charged with 1 count of robbery in the first degree and 1 count of armed criminal action. And that's just one of many examples of the great work that our crime analysts do every day. On January 6th, North Patrol, Shoal Creek, and the traffic divisions partnered with several other agencies to conduct a multi-jurisdictional expired license plate enforcement operation. Actions taken resulted in 271 citations issued, 81 warnings given, 63 temp tags confiscated, 23 license plates confiscated, 1 summons for obstruction, 1 outside state warrant arrest, and 1 recovered firearm. Moving on to special operations. During the month of January, the tactical response teams participated in 2 Operation 100s, 17 search warrants, made 54 warrant arrests, and 14 investigation arrests. They also provided 2 honor guards for retiree funerals, 2 color guards, and 2 static displays. Here's January's median response time report. The median response time for priority 1 calls was 8 minutes and 13 seconds. That's a 6-second decrease compared to December. The median response time for priority 2 calls was approximately 9 minutes and 54 seconds. That's a 46-second decrease compared to December. That's the 2nd month in a row where response times have decreased. And also the 911 average hold time for January was 24 seconds, which is a 7-second decrease from December. Going on to traffic, the Traffic Investigation Unit responded to 9 fatal crashes with a total of 11 deaths during the month of January. For comparison, in January 2023, there were 3 fatal crashes with 4 total victims.
Deputy Chief, if I may stop you just briefly, is there some rationale for that? That does seem at least a material enough change that it warrants some level of attention.
This is continuing a trend that started probably late last year. Early 2023, we're on pace actually for a reduction, and then we started maybe 2/3 of the year, started a dramatic increase. One of the things that we've noticed, and if you may recall, we reported last month on some of the stats, but speed and not wearing a seatbelt are major contributing factors to the serious injuries and fatalities.
As I understand from when Deputy Chief Oakman used to present from us in your position, we've had those 2 factors for some time. What started happening in late 2023 that leads to this increased 2024 challenge? Now, of course, we're dealing with single to low double digits, so is it not a statistical item we should notice necessarily, or is it something that seems to be interesting about events, certain roads, activities, drag racing, anything of that sort that might be contributing to that?
Well, specific to events, I can't speak to that, but I will say that historically, when homicide rates rise, traffic fatalities rise too.
But even that seems to be ever so slightly reduced, right? We were at 20 at this point last year in homicides. We're at 16 now. maybe what I'm asking for in the future, just so we can contextualize traffic, is there some sort of recognizable trend that we should be noticing? Perhaps the answer is no, and maybe that's it. But I would be intrigued, given the fact that the city also spends millions in trying to make sure that in either traffic safety, other areas, we're looking at things, so.
I mean, I think it's also just a general lawlessness where people are failing to obey, your general laws. I mean, it started probably trending back in 2020. I mean, several contributing factors. If we have staffing shortages and, our traffic officers are having to assist with taking accident reports as opposed to doing proactive traffic enforcement, I mean, that's one piece of it. Like I said, I think.
And if I may, is it your view that our traffic enforcement has been able to do less traffic enforcement in early '24 as compared to early '23?
Well, I
I
wouldn't-
only see the statistic in front of me.
Right.
So
Well, I wouldn't I think it's a trend line. It's hard to make especially, comparing, just 1 month of statistics. But, we have been down for a while, and, we have parades that they handle. They have a lot of other duties, but I definitely think that enforcement piece keeps the speeds lower. And as we've already stated, speed has been a contributing factor. And, I mean, I just don't understand the reason why people refuse to wear seatbelts. I mean, 9 out of the 11 fatality accidents this month have people not wearing a seatbelt. And so we are conducting PSAs and trying to get the message out that is one way to reduce fatalities.
Thank you.
If I could weigh in for just a second. Deputy Chief Maben and I recognize this trend, which is why our accident investigation presented last month to discuss like those 3 main factors. It was speed, seatbelt, and impairment. And even over the weekend, as we're reviewing the board book, we recognize the number right here. And I obviously, Deputy Chief Maben and I have conversations, and we loop in the major of the traffic division, and he shows some pictures, some screenshots of some of the photos of the fast speeds at which we're clocking people on the highways, and they're over 100 miles an hour, 107, 104, 109. So we do have traffic enforcement out there trying to curb some of this dangerous behavior. I do echo Deputy Chief Maben's response as far as some of the lawlessness that we have seen. I will say that our traffic division is also looking at we used to have a careless driving charge that was a bondable offense. It's no longer a bondable offense. I do think that having the ability, that is one of the tools that we did have, is having that ability if someone is acting in such a dangerous manner that it rises to the level of a careless driving.
Let me make sure I understand. It was previously bondable.
Correct.
Meaning we could detain someone for some longer period. Now it is merely a
Correct.
citation where someone that shortly thereafter is released.
Yes.
What was the legal change?
I believe that was statewide.
There was a Missouri law change that,
I believe it was a statute change. I've talked to our traffic division about that. That's something that they're researching right now. But yes, it did used to be a bondable offense. And and as you can imagine, a careless driving, it was usually two ordinance violations basically in
Right.
one would be like careless driving, excessive speeds or and some other contributing factor that would rise to the level of careless driving.
understood.
That is under discussion with us. That's something that we're reviewing and looking into. I did not mean to interrupt, Deputy Chief. Maybe go ahead.
Thank you.
You want to go to the next slide? Here's the DUI Wolfpack numbers for January. The DUI section conducted 3 Wolfpack operations during the month. Despite the freezing temperatures, they conducted a combined total of 14 traffic stops, issued 8 tickets, and made 1 DUI arrest. However, department-wide, there were 53 city DUI citations during the month, with an additional 40 DUI cases submitted for state prosecution. And that concludes my presentations. Do you have any questions?
Any questions?
I'm still feeling it today. Thank you, sir, for entertaining all of these. I'm looking at some of the accidents, by the way, and they really are, I mean, just a lot of high speed, to your point on perhaps a general disrespect for rules being a concern with what we're dealing with. I wanted to ask you if this is the right area about school resource officers. That falls within the patrol division?
Correct.
Correct. All right. And I remember, and I believe this was a public incident, we had an attack on actually a uniformed officer who I believe was an assist at a high school in Kansas City in the last month. If we're dealing with juveniles, rather they're committing robberies or perhaps other offenses throughout our city, to what extent is there communication between our school resource officers and I guess up through your division of those who are causing some consistent threats, challenges, or concerns? In so many words, to what extent can we catch challenges, problems, and issues with certain young people that we might be able to intervene with at a later point?
We definitely have close communication with our SROs, also Kansas City Public Schools, security, teachers, Partners for Peace. Everybody is who is coming in contact with juveniles who have an opportunity to, or who are at risk for either participating in violence or being victims. That information does funnel up. We share that with our gang intelligence squad. We share that with other, our social service providers. And so we're trying to attack it from both ends of offering support, maybe connecting to mentoring, but also the ones who are continuing to offend, like you said, with our officer being assaulted, enforcement as well.
And does that engagement go both ways? And I think back to a homicide we had, I believe, inside a middle school in Kansas City last year in that effect. And I know Community Engagement Division does work to perhaps make sure that we're preventing future offenses and others, but to the extent that there are threats within the school buildings themselves, which is unfortunate, but I guess where we are. Do we have that communication perhaps from gang intelligence unit to SROs to school staff and beyond?
The communication is a two-way street. It goes both ways. And so once we're made aware of a threat, we, gang intelligence, or community partners will reach out and do risk for retaliation messaging, but they also go directly to the school and share that information with the SROs, the administration, and vice versa. So it's a continual loop. The SROs are in the community engagement division, and so they're talking to CIOs. As you know, and you've attended many times, there's a shoot review every week, and so you have representatives from social service providers, Community Engagement Division, folks in general, but also investigations and patrol. So we're all collectively working together. But it's not just us, it's also these outside partners, particularly Partners for Peace.
The reason I ask the questions, if it isn't readily apparent, I mean, the challenge for both those of us on the board and policymakers across the street and beyond is this kind of foundational understanding, not purporting to know the facts of either robbery suspects or others, but a juvenile perhaps who is regularly carrying firearms or others may not have had their first criminality at the time at which they're robbing any number of Kansas Cityans or they're committing more violent offenses. And to what extent are we able to reach those juveniles at some earlier intervention point is an area in which I think I have some great interest. And to the extent that they are in schools presenting challenges, and perhaps none of them ever have, which is a possibility, but others perhaps have, it would be nice to know how we're able to, do more with that. For example, even the incident where one of our officers was assaulted by a student in a high school, and I don't want to go too far in the discussion, although I believe there were charges actually filed. Who else might be adjacent to the situation, what others may be involved. It seems as if a lot of the work that we're doing broadly with adults needs to be done with our young people too. And so what I'll also, much like the traffic safety trends, perhaps ask you the extent to which we have been able to yield more information from juvenile offenders in places where juveniles are present, like our schools, the extent to which we're able to intervene more regularly in some of the work, intervene at least in stopping them from either recruiting more who are engaged in activities and beyond. It will be very interesting for us to learn more about what we can do there. And that's about all. All right. Thank you.
I have a question kind of on those lines too. I know last year we had a high homicide rate of 183. What I would love to see of that, and I know we did our job as clearance rate of over 73%, I think, which is way above the national average of about 50. So what I would like to know is of that is if there's a way we could get a percentage of the ones that we've cleared, what percentage of those were done by juveniles? I think that would be a great place to start. And then follow along what the mayor is saying. How do we do something about this earlier to prevent this from happening or them being career criminals?
Yeah, we can get that information.
Thank you.
I just want to go back to our officer that was injured in the school. We did follow up with school district officials, had a meeting quickly thereafter that was actually already scheduled prior to his, to that offense. We also brought in outside resources as well into that meeting. So these discussions, I just want to reiterate what he said, these discussions are being had in a preventative way. Like I said, that meeting was scheduled before our officer was injured, but we are engaging everyone that we need to. And in response to kind of what you said about trying to prevent, we are in a lot of spaces and places trying to do preventative measures and engaging partners, whether it be with juveniles or adults. But I will say, I just want to make this very, very clear, and I'm not minimizing our role and influence in violent crime, but I just want it to be said that is the whole approach, the citywide approach to violent crime. Everyone has to get involved to significantly reduce violent crime in Kansas City. The police are not the end-all be-all solution. In fact, oftentimes when offenders come in contact with police, there's a lot of other systems that have failed prior to that incident. So I want to make sure that like our role as police, but at the same time, please know that we are in all of these different spaces and places and trying to do outreach, prevention, intervention. We're in all three of those pillars: prevention, intervention, and enforcement. So I just wanted to just reiterate that to the board.
If I may, Madam Chair, there is a Handle with Care program that the health department works with the police department on. Just so the board is aware of some of the work we are doing, could you explain that to them?
Sure. Our Handle with Care program is if an officer comes in contact, maybe makes a call for service or is somewhere where there's a juvenile present of a school age, the officer can it's just a quick drop down, and you just put the address of the student and the officer serial number. That's it. We don't share any kind of protected information. It's just basically saying a kiddo in and around this area or this address had contact with police, which means they may have been exposed to some kind of traumatic situation. That way, counselors at those schools that match up with that particular address will know if there's a child in that classroom, that there's to handle them with care. At times, sometimes if a kiddo is involved in some type of call for service where police are present, or some type of traumatic incident where a police officer has reported that they've had contact with that child may be, tired at school, maybe have some kind of indicators that there may be some kind of a stress going on. That way, counselors can immediately reach that child quickly after any kind of a traumatic event has occurred. That way we can begin the healing process. It's a great program. I know that we push that out usually in the fall to try to make sure that officers are aware that it is a special order, that officers are to engage in that process.
Thank you.
Colonel Ortiz?
Good morning, Commissioner. My information is under tab D in your books. As you can see, our law enforcement strength is 1,089 police officers or law enforcement, 37 police officer candidates, and 514 professional staff members. In terms of law enforcement hiring, we have 32 candidates in the process of possible eligibility. We have 10 confirmed candidates for the 181st class, which will start on March 18th, 14 candidates pending job offers, and 2 laterals. Communications unit hiring numbers. We hire 1 member as recent as last week. We have 3 job offers pending and 5 members in the process of possible eligibility.
Excellent.
Our upcoming law enforcement testing dates, we will have one this Thursday, February 22nd at the Police Academy. All of them are going to be at the Police Academy, March 20th, and April 27th, and May 23rd. We want to remind everyone that our department offers a wide range of career opportunities, not only in law enforcement, but other positions, and we encourage anyone interested to apply at kcpd.org/careers. Our wellness unit has been doing an incredible job following up with our members and their families to see not only that how they can assist, but also to let them know that they're not forgotten. The wellness unit contacted Officer Mulbauer's wife about renaming a training field, and we did that last week. And from this point on, that training facility is going to be named Mulbauer's and Canine Champ Training Field. We're actively engaging our community through recruitment, and you see the listed locations where our officers will be recruiting, and we encourage anyone that is interested in our police department to please come and check us out and apply. And unless you have any questions, that will be it for me.
I do have a question. On the recruiting class, the numbers for the 179th, it says entrant officer department change. You see that? There were 14 that were at the regional academy, so I assume not our people because we have KCPD up above. And then it says regional resigned, terminated, injured, and recycled 1, and then entrant officer department change 1. So the number, the total number 14 didn't change. Is that right?
That is correct. I believe that we started with 17 on that class, and then we lost 2 or 3 in the process, through the process. And some of them were for personal reasons, and the other one was for not performing accurately.
This number's 14, not 17.
Right, initially we started with 17.
Oh. So when it says regional start, it doesn't mean at the beginning?
It does. It should. It should. Let me look at the page to see which one you're talking about.
I want to know who pays. The part I'm looking at specifically is the switch from one department to another. And I think there was a switch from the Kansas City Police Department to Blue Springs.
Yes, there was one person that left our department just 2 weeks before graduation.
And who paid for that training?
Blue Springs.
They paid for the whole thing?
They're going to be paying for that. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I spoke with the chief, and they are reimbursing us for the entire training, yes.
Thank you. You know we care about that. We don't think we're charging enough as it is, but if somebody gets to have us pay and then go to Blue Springs, that's not fair. Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, Colonel McCullum.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Mayor. All items for the Executive Services Bureau are located under tab E of your board book. Item A, budget transfers for fiscal year 2023-24. I request general fund, public safety sales tax fund, and police grant fund transfers. The general fund transfer moves $1,084,250 from personal services in the amounts of $1,064,250 to contractual services and $20,000 to commodities. Due to appropriation cuts to contractual services, this transfer is necessary to ensure sufficient funding in those categories for the normal operation of the department. The Public Safety Sales Tax Fund moves $39,180 from contractual services to capital outlay. The Police Grants Fund transfer moves $10,281 from personal services and $27,500 from commodities, totaling $37,781 to contractual services. Police Grants Fund transfers adjust appropriations to where they are needed now compared to when they were estimated in the fall of 2022 as the budget was being put together. Unless you have any questions, I recommend approval.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those no?
Vote no.
Item B, adjustment to special revenue accounts for fiscal year 2023-24. The department recently received reimbursement of approximately $45,000 for an accident that resulted in the total loss of one of our motor vehicles. Therefore, it is requested that $45,000 be appropriated from the unappropriated fund balance of the Special Services Fund to purchase a replacement vehicle. Unless you have any questions, I recommend approval.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, oh, is any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item C, computer replacement plan. The department continues to look for ways to bolster our aging IT infrastructure. One way to accomplish this is by updating our computers and hardware so that we remain compliant with criminal justice information services requirements and maintain the overall security of our network. The memo you have states that these are being purchased by the Police Foundation of Kansas City, but that's incorrect. They're being purchased with public safety sales tax funds. Unless you have any questions, I recommend approval to purchase computers and hardware from Dell Technologies and Apple Direct for a total cost of $1,733,581.34, utilizing the Omnia Partners contract.
Is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in any discussion?
I have a few questions on it, and maybe I haven't shopped for computers en masse enough lately, but, you know, looking at the notes here, we're getting about a $2,000 per computer plus monitor soundbar value, which doesn't actually seem like the world's greatest value given the scale at which the numbers at which we're buying them. I mean, are they giving us any particular discount or advantage in connection with it? It just seems that as compared to buying them on a commercial market, which you would naturally think is more expensive, we aren't necessarily getting the economies of scale we would want from the high number of computers we're purchasing. Can you speak to that? And I guess maybe the answer is there's a long procurement they're the ones who responded, all that sort of stuff?
Yes, I mean, we go off the already negotiated contracts that are out there. We can piggyback off the ones that are most beneficial to us, which is this Omnia Partners contract. They've already negotiated this pricing, which is much better than if we went out and did it à la carte on our own.
All right, but what I'm assuming, because we're always being valuable people, I don't want to be able to say if I could just go, figure out how to buy 650 of these, that I could get some better value. So the representation to this board is that this is actually the best value we have available for the purchase of this type of device.
Yes, sir.
All right. And then we have certain Apple devices too, which I understand getting all of them to interact can be some challenge, but I imagine you'll buy a Windows operating system to put on the Apples and all of that. Why are we, smaller price, only 22 grand, so I could just ignore it, but talk to me about that too, if you could.
No, I appreciate you asking about that. The Apple has far more superior, when it comes to doing graphics and things of that nature. So our media unit actually uses that quite a bit when they're doing their presentations or their setting up of different things. So anyway, it's much superior than what Windows has as far as.
I would agree with you, actually. And so that brings me back to the 650 plus 150 you're buying. Let's go with the 150 that costs about 370 grand. Apple tends to also produce a slightly lighter weight computer as well. The laptops, are these ones that are just going around the department? Are these for vehicles?
Around the department, they're not for the
They're
vehicles.
just around the
That's going to be a separate one that we're going to be looking at later.
Maybe I guess the broader question, who is Omnia Partners? Are they the computer getting people that we work with, or what's their relationship as to Dell and KCPD?
I think they're just another company who's, they've got the contract, so they've done a contract, but I don't know their exact relationship with.
The Omnia is just like the NASPO contracts, where it's a national contract that is negotiated with specific companies for government facilities like us. And so we are able to piggyback off of those contracts. We do have a business, association with Dell, in that we can get it, as far as a business account, we can get a contract from Dell on a lesser amount, but the Omnia contract in this case was cheaper per item than our business contract that we have with Dell. And so the purchasing section, oftentimes when we get an initial bid, we go then look at what the NASPO or what existing contracts are out there that we can also use to find the cheapest price we can get for the devices.
Omnia works broadly, I assume, with police departments around the country?
Yes, and the city, like the city can piggyback off of a Omnia contract as well.
And then we pay Omnia some consideration, I assume, for managing our computer retention or acquisition they're doing it for free?
Yeah, I think they don't do it for free. I think their money comes from the companies that they negotiate the contract with.
Understood. All right. I just want to make sure people aren't tricking all of us police departments and beyond. So.
We know we have a finite amount of funds, and we got to get the most we can with those funds. So believe me, we're doing everything we can to do that.
Understood. Thank you. That's all. That's all, Madam Chair. I know we're on a motion now.
I think I've had a motion and a second, and the discussion, any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Next, ED.
Item D, Apex Officer Pro Training Simulator System. The department wishes to purchase the state-of-the-art interactive crisis intervention, de-escalation, and use of force training simulator known as Apex Officer Pro. The Apex Officer Training System is a comprehensive solution designed to allow law enforcement trainers the ability to give presentations and classes, conduct interactive testing and assessments, and provide immersive, hands-on scenario-based exercises with detailed debriefing and after-action reviews. The APEX system is designed to increase trainee de-escalation knowledge, skills, and confidence in a safe, challenging environment that is highly interactive and engaging. The Apex Officer Pro Training Simulator is a sole source product manufactured, sold, and distributed exclusively by GovRed Technology Incorporated.
I'll just make a motion. This is the best thing you've brought all day. I would move approval, Madam Chair.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Well, the next 7 items gets even better, so if we could just approve them right now, I'd be happy. Item E, Forensic Computer Crimes Digital Forensic Software. The Forensic Computer Crimes section has identified a need for digital forensic software that is designed to assist detectives with cases requiring digital evidence examinations for violent crimes. Because of the department's relationship with our federal partners, this purchase will keep the department compliant with the requirements set forth by the FBI. Unless you have any questions, I recommend approval to purchase digital forensic software and from Carasoft Technology using the Omnia Partners contract for a total cost of $231,973, and this is a Police Foundation of Kansas City funded purchase.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item F, Forensic Computer Crimes Computers. The Forensic Computer Crimes section has identified a need for computer hardware that is also designed to assist detectives with cases requiring digital evidence examinations for violent crimes. Because of the department's relationship with our federal partners, this purchase meets requirements set by the FBI. Unless you have any questions, I recommend approval to purchase digital forensic software from Carasoft Technology utilizing the Omnia Partners contract for a total cost of $194,845.99. And this is also a Police Foundation of Kansas City funded purchase.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item G.
Item G, Master Radio Inverter Replacement Purchase. The department's need to replace its aging and failing radio tower site inverters. Should any of our radio tower sites lose traditional power, the inverters are designed to keep the system operational by converting the power from the backup batteries so the servers, switches, routers, and other equipment will function properly. Many of these inverters are beginning to fail, and it is becoming increasingly difficult to get them repaired. In addition to our immediate need for replacements, this purchase will allow us to have several spares on hand to replace other inverters as they fail at other sites. Unless you have any questions, I recommend approval to purchase new radio inverter replacements from Motorola Solutions and Staco Electric at a combined cost of $160,356.49.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. H.
Item H, renewal of bid number 2023-8, automotive tires. On March 22nd, 2022, the board awarded State Avenue Tire a one-year contract for automotive tires. The original contract period was from May 1st, 2022 through April 30th, 2023, with the option to renew for 4 additional one-year periods. State Avenue Tire has agreed to an additional one-year extension with no price increase for the period of May 1st, 2024 through April 30th, 2025. I recommend approval for a one-year contract renewal with State Avenue Tire for an anticipated expenditure of $157,255.20. And if approved, this will be the second renewal.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Item I, bid number 2023-6, Ford Parts and Accessories Renewal. In February 2022, Thoroughbred Ford was awarded a one-year contract to provide the department with Ford parts and accessories. This award included the option to renew for 2 additional one-year periods. Thoroughbred Ford has agreed to an additional one-year extension with no price increase for the period of May 1st, 2024 through April 30th, 2025. I recommend approval for a one-year contract renewal with Thoroughbred Ford for an anticipated expenditure of $155,146.22. If approved, this will be the second and final renewal.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item J, bid number 2023-5, Motorcraft Parts, Brakes, Components Renewal. On March 22nd, 2022, the Board of Police Commissioners approved a one-year contract for Motorcraft Parts, Brakes, Components, and Accessories to Factory Motor Parts. The award included the option to renew for 2 additional one-year periods. Factory Motor Parts has agreed to an additional one-year extension with no price increase for the period of May 1st, 2024 through April 30th, 2025. I recommend approval for a one-year contract renewal with Factory Motor Parts for an anticipated expenditure of $179,889.34. If approved, this will be the second and final renewal.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Item K, fiscal year 2023 state and local cybersecurity grant program subaward. The department recently received the fiscal year 2023 state and local cybersecurity grant program subaward from the Missouri Department of Public Safety. These are federal funds passed through the Department of Public Safety. These are federal funds passed through to the Department of Public Safety from the Department of Homeland Security for the hiring of a cybersecurity analyst contractor for the Kansas City Regional Fusion Center. The subaward period is from February 1st, 2024 through January 31st, 2027. Unless you have any questions, I recommend approval to accept this $250,000 subaward.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. Colonel Young?
Good morning. My portion is under tab F. We have one policy in front of you today for approval. I recommend approval with one minor change. On page 1, section 2B, department vehicle damage, at the end of the first sentence, it should read, or caused by a vehicular incident. So add the word incident, and with that, I recommend approval.
You get off so easy. I'll move approval.
Thank you.
Motion's been made. Is there a second? Second. All those in, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Anything else, Colonel Young?
That is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Okay. Now we have the Office of General Counsel, Mr. Weinert.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My action items are under tab G in your board book. The first item for your consideration is an appeal by John H. Davis, Jr. of the Private Officer Licensing Unit's denial of his application for an armed private security officer license. In his application for an armed private security license, Mr. Davis provided differing stories on the conditions of his departure from his previous employment. On January 22nd, 2024, the Private Officer Licensing Unit denied his application pursuant to 17 CSR 10-2.0503, which in subsection L states that an applicant may be denied if he has made any false statements or giving any false information in connection with an application for a license, and subsection O, which states that an applicant may be denied if he has provided other facts or actions which demonstrate that the applicant is unsuitable or ineligible for a license. POLU manager Tammy Gallagher and I are happy to answer any questions you may have. Otherwise, the private officer licensing unit recommends upholding the denial of this application.
Okay, and it's my understanding he submitted 2 different applications, right?
2 different forms detailing his previous employment. That's correct,
But he
Commissioner.
did them all, both on the same day,
Yes.
and was, as we can read from the information from the previous employer, they were accurate.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion on this request?
Move that we overturn the denial and grant the license.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I will just say briefly, and this would be appropriate for closed session at some point, I still don't always love that we're in this business. I understand state law gives us the authority to do so. I have any number of questions relating to liability in the event we were to choose the opposite approach, because with bare facts such as these, we're asked to make, I think, somewhat important determinations that do give me some concern, but that's all I'll have on that.
Any other discussion?
Well, I would share the mayor's concern. It's oftentimes very difficult to just glean from the appeal letter without a person being here to cross-examine or to question and get some sense of what's truly happening in that application process, and maybe that's something that we can explore on how to improve.
Appreciate that, Commissioners and Mayor, and we're happy to discuss that further.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
My second item is an appeal of Oladimeji J. Anafawase of the Private Officer Licensing Unit's denial of his application for an armed private security license. On August 1st, 2023, while employed as a detention officer, Mr. Anafawase overheard a phone call between an inmate and a visitor. Mr. Anafawase subsequently sent the visitor vulgar, sexually harassing text messages. On January 4th, 2024, Mr. Anafawase was placed on suspended imposition of sentence, probation for 2 years for harassment. On February 1st, 2024, the Private Officer Licensing Unit denied Mr. Anafawase's application pursuant to 17 CSR 10-2.0503, subsection H, which states that an applicant must be of good moral character, including having no felony convictions, misdemeanor convictions, or city ordinance convictions, and subsection O, which states that an application may be denied if an applicant provides other facts or actions which demonstrate that the applicant is unsuitable or ineligible for license. Again, Manager Gallagher and I are happy to answer any questions that you may have. Otherwise, the Private Officer Licensing Unit recommends upholding the denial of this application.
I make a motion to uphold the denial.
Motion's been made to uphold the denial. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. The remainder of my report will be in closed session.
Thank you. All right, we are now on to Mr. Bennigan, Office of Community Complaints.
Good morning, Commissioners. This morning, we have just a brief presentation, as was promised during last month's meeting, that'll be offered by legal analyst Diane Mazzucato. But before we do that, I just wanted to say that we've, over the past, year or so, we've been working with a new software program that's has a number of benefits. Principle of which being that we're able to move our investigations faster because it's basically a paperless system. That being the case, the report that we offered in the board book this month under tab H reflects the first month that we actually pulled the statistics from the new software program and used it to prepare this month's report. However, that being the case, and we thank Chief Graves for pointing this out, if you look at page 3 under the year-to-date numbers, there's some inaccuracies in that final column with the year-to-date numbers. It doesn't affect the general substance of the report, but we just wanted to acknowledge that those numbers are incorrect, and we will get those corrected as quickly as possible. Everything else, to our knowledge, is just fine. But we wanted to make sure that we acknowledge that error. And again, we thank Chief Graves for catching that and letting us know. Also, you know, in life you have these proud moments, and this morning I have a proud moment. Since 2008, I've been an adjunct instructor here in Kansas City at a number of institutions. And this semester I'm also teaching at Rockhurst University. And this morning I had two of my students to join us here at the police board meeting. So Milani Hollingshed, she was here, but she had to step out, but also Joseph, he just told me his name. Say it again for me. Yep, particular. He's here as well. Stand up, Joseph. This is one of my students at Rockhurst. He's taking the Intro to Criminal Justice course. But the interesting thing about it, he's a senior at University Academy, so he's taking college-level courses at Rockhurst, and I'm just so proud and thankful that you know, they had a day off, but they decided to come down and to spend some time with us here at the police board meeting. So
And you'll introduce him to the people that are in charge of recruiting officers, right?
I will, but they've already given indications that they're interested in going into law, particularly
Oh my goodness.
prosecution and
talk to you
things of
about
that
that.
nature. So I just wanted to acknowledge those young people. And you know, we oftentimes we paint young people with a broad brush, but just to know that we do have young people in our city that are interested and engaged, and they're doing the right thing. So thank you. At this time, I'll yield to Diane Mazzucato.
Thank you, and thank you for coming.
Good morning.
Morning.
Like I said, my name is Diane Mazzucato. I've been with the Office of Citizens Complaint for about a year. A little bit about what my role is, and then we'll go into about what he said we were going to talk about. I am what they call the intake person, so all the complaints come to me, and I look at them, and I look at how we should handle these. A lot of it comes with what the complainant wants to do. And there's basically two ways that we take care of them. We'll send them for a full investigation, and that's sent to Internal Affairs. And then we have complaints that are not sent over there, and we call those NICs, which are non-investigated complaints. That can encompass a lot of different ones. Some of them are things that we don't accept because of policy, whether they're like over 180 days, anonymous complaints, third party. Also things that are outside our jurisdiction, outside our purview. And then the other things that we also can do is mediation and conciliation. And that's what I'm talking today about, is mediation and conciliation. Conciliation is a form of, it is an investigation, but it is not. It is, usually I involve the individual's division commander or supervisor, and this is agreed upon with the complainant. It's a different form of mediation. It's kind of an in-between mediation and investigation. A lot of times, complainants don't want a full-blown investigation, but they want their commander or supervisor aware of what's going on. So we will send it to their commander, and they will do their investigation. They will consult with the complainant and the employee. The other method of handling non-investigated complaints is through mediation. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, mediations kind of took a hiatus. We are just starting to start that back up. That was one of my roles, that when I came to the Office of Community Complaints, that Director Bennigan asked me to, let's revamp it, let's get back into mediations. Mediation gives the opportunity of the complainant and the officer to come together with an independent mediator and talk through what happened. Again, this has to be something that's agreed upon on both parties. So one of the things that I've done to start revamping this is I reached out to my pool of mediators. I have about 15 independent mediators that come in and do the mediation. I revamped that, and then I also am beginning to start, matter of fact, tomorrow is my first time, is go to the roll calls to talk to the officers about mediation. Like I said, it's kind of not been done for a while because of the pandemic, and we're starting to get back into it, and we have a lot of new officers out there that don't realize this is an opportunity for them to participate. Again, like I said, it has to be agreeable both on the complainant and the officer's part. Last year, I had an opportunity to mediate 4 complaints. 2 were successful, 1 was non-successful, and 1 ended up being a conciliation. But again, like I said, like tomorrow night, I'm going to roll calls to meet all the officers to talk about mediation. Again, it is an opportunity that gives both the officer and the complainant a way of actively resolving the complaint. The nice thing about mediation is it gives the complainant some kind of resolve, and it also gives the officer some kind of resolve. That's basically it in a nutshell. Any questions about non-investigated complaints or the mediation or conciliation process? I can't be that good.
Actually, your presentation was very clear, and I'm glad that you have, I thought you all did the mediations in-house. I didn't know you had a team of people to help you. That's great.
No, yeah, they're independent, and that way it's totally, it's confidential. What goes on in that mediation is totally confidential. It's between the complainant, the officer, and the mediator, so.
Just one follow-up on that, if I may, Madam President. So in a mediation, oftentimes we see shuttle diplomacy with one party in one room and the mediator going back and forth. Is this a combined effort that brings both parties together to actually have a discussion in front of each other?
Yes, we've only, I think in the history of the mediation program, we've only done shuttle mediations maybe once or twice, and that was only because at the time of the mediation, it became a little bit more adversarial than we initially anticipated, so we felt it best to kind of take a different approach. But usually we just do general tabletop mediations, and we've had great success with those.
Any other questions?
Let me just also say this, and I don't give them enough credit, but I quite possibly have the best staff in the entire city. As Diane alluded to, oftentimes I just give them assignments and I'd say figure it out, and they do. The software migration and all the things that were going on with that, again, there were some issues came up. They came to me. I just looked at them and said, okay, figure it out, and they did. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to just thank my staff at the Office of Community Complaints. They do a magnificent job, and in keeping with your mandates to engage in more community problem solving, that's exactly what we're able to do through the non-investigative complaint process and the mediation and conciliation. So I just wanted to thank them publicly.
That's wonderful. What you're doing, we had a fabulous speaker that came and spoke to the communications unit and others that were allowed to attend. But that speaker, Commissioner Whitaker and I went to all 3 sessions because we learned a lot. They said that you should empower your employees. And where she learned it, she said her father would say, just figure it out, which I think is exactly what you just said.
Well, a good friend of mine, one of his sayings is that if I have to worry about it and you have to worry about it, then one of us doesn't need to be here. So they figure it out. So they do a wonderful job.
Well,
So
I'm glad you empower your people. Thank you. Okay. Public comments. Mr. Kenner?
Yes, we have 2. First, Taylor Jackson. You'll have 2 minutes.
Welcome, Taylor.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Taylor Jackson. I'm a resident of the 4th District here in downtown Kansas City. I'm happy to be with you all here today. On Thursday, February 15th, the Kansas City Police Department hosted their monthly crime meeting at the Metro Patrol Division. There were 4 officers and 7 members of the community present, 2 of which represented our faith-based population. Discussions covered the Welcoming KC initiative set forth by the Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, and we covered the police department's role in meeting certified welcoming goals of safe and connected communities. And we also talked about the importance of the department enforcing municipal ordinances that prohibit the sale and use of Glock auto switches. During the meeting, the following question was raised. Why do focused-based deterrence models return to pre-implementation levels at the 12-month post-intervention point? Citing the Kansas City Police Department's discontinuation of its investigative resources for KC Nova, the No Violence Alliance, in 2020, repetitive removal and reimplementation is costly, not only for a pecuniary stance, but also for the lives of our citizens here. So I just want to leave with this. If focus-based deterrence models are to be re-evaluated and re-implemented, then we just have to make sure that they align with our certified welcoming goals. Thank you.
Thank you. We had a presentation last month about the certified welcoming plan and appreciated that, and I'm so glad you went to one of our meetings. Thank you.
Next is Cheryl Ferguson.
Welcome, Cheryl. Thank you.
Good morning. I first want to start off with actually thanking the officers for their quick reaction after the citizens had tackled the assailants from last Wednesday's events. I'm not taken away at all from the fact that it was very impressive to see the bravery of all of the officers going towards harm. So I definitely want to acknowledge and appreciate you for that. That's not what brought me here today, though. I actually took this half-day vacation after I heard something on the news that I think needs to be addressed. First, I'd like to say I'm glad to not see some faces here, such as your husband's, who arrogantly told me the Vulcaneer would never serve a day in jail, taunting me to have a bad reaction in that nature. But what brought me here today was Blaine Newton. And I would think that if you have somebody, you have officers that go their entire career and don't kill anyone. You have one officer that has 3 kills under his belt and is now again bringing you to court for being sued for excessive force. At what point in time do you not evaluate whether or not an officer is profitable for your offices? And I'm not speaking of a profit margin that you're supposed to gain money. All the money is taxpayer money. But I would think you'd be tired of having taxpayer money pay out for one officer. That makes no sense to me. Additionally, Don, I'm going to ask that you might rethink the information that you had when you said that we need more jails. We also need no cash bond for nonviolent offenses, such as tickets, because you have a lot of people that are being arrested because they're already poor and can't afford the fine itself. Therefore, once they get the warrant, they can't afford to stay out of jail. Before you think that we need to have more jails, you also need to fix that broken part of our system and have a no cash bond. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
All right, next on the agenda is approval of the minutes for January 23rd, 2024. Is there a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any
Second.
discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Kenner.
Yes. I have before you resolution number 24-04 relating to James Melbauer and the Canine Champ Training Field, which was dedicated, I believe, last week. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Police Commissioners of Kansas City, Missouri hereby expresses its sincere gratitude and genuine appreciation for James M. Mulbauer's and Canine Champ's dedication, service, and ultimate sacrifice to the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department and the City of Kansas City, Missouri, and the board takes great pleasure in naming the K-9 unit facility the James M. Mulbauer and K-9 Champ Training Field.
Is there a motion to approve that resolution?
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anything else?
I would also like to thank the department for its response at the event last week. While people ran from the violence that was occurring, the officers of this department and other law enforcement partners ran towards the violence. Incredible bravery was shown, and prompt an end to the violence happened. Unfortunately, we had one person killed and a number injured, way too many. But thanks to your dedication, we avoided a lot more being injured or killed, and I thank you for that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mayor Lucas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few things that I will note. First, I think continuing on a trend that we have heard discussed, but this isn't to minimize the importance of it. Mr. Kenner, I had the opportunity, much like Councilman Rea and others, to see those who were running into danger while others were running away, myself included. I commend everyone from both our department and others that were present on Wednesday of last week. It's an experience that I don't know if many of us ever wish to experience again, but our officers have experienced any number of times. And so I thank everyone who was part of that, both in the Kansas City Police Department, mutual aid agencies, and others who are an important part of that. I share a bit of frustration. I have spoken before, and this is just me speaking for myself, not for anyone else, but the chief did once teach me at a certain point when we're looking to deter criminal conduct, certainty of consequence is in some ways more important even than severity. And I might add in some ways efficiency of some level of resolution. I think as we deal with those who are consistently engaged in criminality, lawlessness, as Deputy Chief May had been mentioned before, we do need to make sure that there is that certainty of consequence, that they will face justice. I think it's important for every part of our criminal justice system, and we're here today with just one of them, to make sure that we are all working together as efficiently as possible, as effectively as possible, to get that certainty of consequence. And I think that is something that needs to be seen by all of those who may commit offenses in our city, whether they are adults, minors, parents, anyone under the sun. And I would hope that the people of Kansas City, not just in the situation we discussed to some extent today, but in future situations, have the chance to receive that. This board certainly, and I don't think anyone who is a city actor, and I'll include the department in this, does not support lawlessness, does not support criminality. And that's what we have seen, not just from the incident on Wednesday, but I think as Deputy Chief Niemeyer mentioned, in too many situations, including very recent homicides, I believe as early as last evening in this city. And so I hope we all continue to use all steps possible to make sure that we address that, knowing that criminal activity will never be permitted, accepted in Kansas City, Missouri. One other point that I think I'll ask Mr. Weinert for further discussion on. I'm just throwing a lot of things at you, but I'm an attorney and they're the things that I like to look at. City Council, over the course of a number of years, have passed a number of ordinances that exist in Chapter 50 of the Code of Ordinances, our weapons chapter, some of which passed long before Missouri changed preemption laws, some of which thereafter. 50-261, which relates to the carrying of weapons. Our department referred charges to the municipal prosecutor, roughly 284 in 2022, 294 last year. Fairly active, and I commend our department in doing so. Discharged within city limits. Last year, 71 citations. In 2023, 78. But in the following areas, we've seen 0 citations last year or the year previous. 50-269, which are concealed weapons in city buildings. One may understand that isn't that frequent, but maybe it is. 50-272, an ordinance relating to the transfer of firearms to minors. We've seen 0 citations since the introduction of that ordinance. Minors in possession of certain ammunition, 50-273, 0. Failure to report a stolen weapon, I do think that's rather clearly preempted by Missouri law, but nonetheless nothing. 50-275, possession of firearms by domestic violence offenders are those subject to an order of protection. We've had 0 citations. And then possession of machine guns and other such items, which actually preceded Missouri's preemption statute, we have seen 0. I bring this to Mr. Weinert, not the rest of the department, because I think we are probably at a point where we need to look at what is rather clearly preempted and what is not. To the extent that something is not preempted, I would imagine that it needs to be part of our regular enforcement regimen, just like the other items in the Code of Ordinances, because as we all know, right, the City Council can't actually necessarily enforce its own ordinances or anything of the sort. What I'd be interested in seeing is to what extent these can be tools to address criminality long-term. And you don't have to come up with an answer today, by the way. This will be a very hard exam for you. But I would hope in the future how we can see that to the extent that we can survive preemption in certain areas, if these are tools we may be able to address, relating back to my juveniles question, and address broadly as to all potential defendants in our community, not just some. And so I'll ask for that further information as time goes along. This is just to make sure that when we speak of issues with lawlessness in our cities and others, certainty of consequences in others, and efficiency in consequences, I do respect at certain times our municipal prosecutors have taken some aggressive steps in making sure we see all that. That's not with disrespect to anyone else in the criminal justice system, all of whom I respect their work, their authority. I just want to make sure we're using all tools possible from the U.S. Attorney's Office through municipal prosecution and our separate 4 state prosecutors. That's all I have. Thank you all again for your work. Chief, I want to particularly thank you for your work over the last week. A group that does not get some acknowledgement, by the way, I'll also give a shout out to, is our communications department. It is very easy to say a lot and say a lot very quickly. That can jeopardize prosecutions, that can jeopardize the reputation of this department and this city. You and your communications staff avoided that while still delivering, I think, sober and important information to the people of Kansas City and our country. That is not easy to do. I've seen many departments and many leaders run afoul of what I think are best practices with that. And so I thank you for all of that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Mr. Whitaker.
Let me start by saying thank you, Chief, and thank you, Deputy Chief Niemeyer, for the report today on what happened last Wednesday. Sincere emotion that you delivered. That update is recognized and greatly appreciated. It's not easy. I don't know that I can come up with any more words to convey a sense of gratitude for all those involved last Wednesday and since then, and what is continuing to happen. So I'll leave it at that it is remarkable to me and very much appreciated. I'll pick up where I left off with Councilman Rhea. I do believe this is a citywide approach that we need to have. It has been no more evident than now that there is a call to action, and I would ask for businesses and their trade associations and faith-based organizations and community organizations to join the conversation and not just be part of the conversation, but be part of the movement to change a culture of violence in this city. That is what I think is going to take on all fronts and all efforts, that there will be no one solution that we can look to for this, but a multitude of things that we all need to do. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Madam President.
I agree totally. And I appreciate all the things that everyone said about thank yous. All of our department people we know worked hard. And as Ms. Ferguson mentioned, there were citizens that helped us. And as Colonel Niemeyer said, hundreds of people gave us video and other information to help our investigation. So we aren't suggesting that we're doing it alone, but we appreciate all of that effort and the cooperation of the community. I'm very proud of this department, and I'm sorry that a minority of people could harm a beautiful celebration last Wednesday, because I went to the parade. I was at 7th Street when you said that you and Bobby were up and down 6th all the way. I was there from early in the morning, and I haven't been able to talk about how wonderful it was to see the police officers throwing footballs to kids and that sort of thing, because there are people that were hurt that day. A woman died, her family is suffering, and it's just impossible to talk about that wonderful day and not think about the horrible things that happened. So I want you all to know we appreciate your work. We know that you do it all the time. You were certainly on center stage for all this last week. Thank you. I want to also thank the people, the call takers and the dispatchers and the supervisors that came. I mentioned when Mr. Bennigan was speaking, we had a team building meetings. We actually had 3, one at 7 in the morning on one day and one at 3 in the afternoon on another, and one at 7 at night on a Saturday. People volunteered to come to that because they want us to have a more productive people. And I learned that I can be more productive and positive, and I'm sure they did too. And I appreciated that they volunteered to come to those meetings. They were not required. They could get overtime for being there. But I appreciated their desire to try and find a way to have a productive unit. And that, to me, is important. And they are working in such hard conditions with a tremendous amount of pressure. And I just appreciate our communications people. That's all I have. Commissioner Kramer, I skipped you.
That's okay. So
Jumped right in.
I would like to say again, my condolences go out to Lisa Lopez Galvin and her family, and all of those that were impacted by what happened. I was there with my family, and it was really a great day, and I left after the parade, but I had 3 kids that were at the rally. And I just think about the impact not only on everybody that was there, but everybody that was watching the TV, because I went home after the parade, I was thanking all the officers, I felt really safe, and I thought, wow, this is great. Everything was going well, and what a great way to end. And then I'm watching it live on TV as things are happening, and just seeing that, knowing that your children are there, I know it impacts a lot of people that have kids there that weren't there. It impacts people that were just watching on TV from going, do I ever want to go to one of these? So it's really saddens me to think what happened, but the best part that came out of it was seeing all you guys, the heroes that went running into the danger, and the chief and the mayor, the way you guys handled it in the public on getting out there and talking about it, because I think that's part of the healing process, is we need to talk about this, and we need to look at what we can do as a community to stop this from happening and making people feel safe and going forward and going back to these events. And it saddens me that with 800 officers there, 600 of ours and 250 or something from the outside, that this happened, because it tells me that these criminals that did this have no respect for human life, and to think that they don't care that there's 800 officers there and still, choosing to have, open fire and do these things. It really makes me think we need to come together as a community and evaluate what we're doing, and we need to send a wake-up call and a message to what has happened, that we will not tolerate this and we will not stand for it, and this will not happen again. And when I talk about jails, I'm talking about jails for violent crimes. We need to make these people accountable for what's happened, and so this doesn't happen again. So I think we all need to come together as a community and share that clear message that, we want to feel safe. This is a great town, and is so sad because it was so close to being over on the perfect ending, and then that happened. So I'm just, sorry that it impacted so many people, and I'm looking forward to coming up with solutions so this doesn't ever happen again in our community. And most of all, I'm really excited that our media was there and it was talking very positively about what heroes you guys are, because I know for a long time you have not been the heroes, or we have not heard about that. And unfortunately, we hate to see this is the way you get that recognition, but I'm glad that you guys are heroes in what you have done for everybody. So I thank you with all my heart.
I think the next thing we need to do is move into closed session for the things on our agenda regarding litigation, personnel, and labor. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I may, I will make the motion too. I just wouldn't feel right if I didn't leave this day saying this. First of all, the week before the parade, I had the good fortune of announcing a new budget proposal that looks to start off our officer pay with a 30% increase. Now, there are more details to work out, but if ever there was a reason that I think that's necessary, it's what we saw last Wednesday. And I will say even more personally, and I've never met this officer in my life, my wife and I got separated during the melee and events that ensued. There was an officer, a gentleman by the name of Ferber, who helped make sure that my wife and my mother got off to a bus, got somewhere safe. And there are officers who did that, hundreds of officers who did that on Wednesday. They're to be commended. And as a goodbye, and my wife told me this in tears, that she didn't know what to say to him, and he just gave her a hug. And she got on the bus, moved on her day, and he probably stayed there and had work to do. The number of stories that are like that for this department are probably immeasurable. And the impact that folks like Officer Ferber and others did to calm people, to help people, is immeasurable. So truly, thank you. It is a tough job, but know that you're valued. Madam Chair, I move that we go into closed session pursuant to revised statute of Missouri, section 610, to discuss the matters you have previously mentioned, litigation and other matters.
I have to say, thank you for the budget. We really appreciate it, and we know it's not an easy time, but our officers need those pay raises, so thank you very much. Motion's been made to go into closed session. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Dean, aye.
Lucas, aye.
Kramer, aye.
Whitaker, aye.
We are going into closed session.